Today I am out of the shop and in the dyno cell and the flow bench room, and I'm going to be talking about a cold air intake. This one happens to be the reusable filter one by S&B, and this particular filter system is designed to work with the standard Colorado from 2017 to 2021, and it incorporates a complete replacement of everything from the throttle body all the way to the end of the air box. So you're going to see a complete transformation of the engine bay as you get rid of the engine cover as well as the entire air box. The S&B system is complete in the box, and what I mean by that is it does have everything you're going to need for the complete installation. No other accessories are required, as it gives you everything from the airbox, the tubes, including the new reusable filter. The instructions are very thorough, and they provide you with all of the necessary parts to put everything together, including the clamps, any emissions, fittings, a new hose, the connectors, and a very well labeled set of bags that match the instructions on each of the pieces of hardware. As you go through the installation process following the instructions, one thing you will notice is the build quality. S&B does a great job of putting some heavy materials in there, so it acts as a great insulator for the air charge, but you're also going to find that each of the pieces is very well fitted. There's really no cutting of any kind of plastics or rubbers that have to be done to make anything fit together. If it's got a form or a shape, it's made to fit exactly. Whether it's the gaskets or if it's the actual box itself, you can definitely tell where they spent their time doing the design and engineering. There's going to be a little bit of fitment here as everything is a really tight fit, but that's definitely something that's a positive about the product. You're going to notice that same kind of fit and finish is something you'll find as you get through each of the steps. They've done a great job with designing a product that will actually function as well as fit the vehicle as intended. One of the features of the S&B cold air box is the fact that it has a removable box panel. Now, this is designed so that you can actually take apart this rear section and increase the amount of airflow into the air box. This does make a substantial improvement to the total amount of air draws. It no longer has to force its way through that side panel in the fender. Now, this is a removable part, and as I am going to be doing some dyno testing and flow bench testing, I'm going to go ahead and start off by installing this. And as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. 4 bolts gets it on and off, and you install it directly through the top, and this can be done on the vehicle as well. And speaking of vehicle, if you notice, I am completely building this on the bench, and that's because I'm going to be taking this with me to work so that I can do some flow bench work first. So a lot of this procedure that you're going to be seeing done here on the bench is going to be very similar to what you're going to be doing on the vehicle. So when you're on the car, just follow the instructions. And just a little hint, anytime you are putting together any of the rubber or silicone surfaces and mating that with some of the plastics, it's always better to put a little bit of lubrication on the surfaces so you don't damage anything while pressing in. And in some cases, the fitment is just that tight where it's almost required for you to put them together. I'm not going to go into the details of all of the assembly, as there are plenty of good videos out there on how to do this on the vehicle. I'm here to get the testing ready, so I'm going to fast forward through the rest. So here, side by side, you can definitely see the differences between the S&B and the factory airbox. First and foremost, you can see that the airbox itself is substantially larger. This gives the filter inside better breathing capacity, and couple that to the little trapdoor or removable panel that's on there, you get a lot more air potential through the air filter and thus into the motor. On top of that, you get a nice direct shot, as you can see, straight from the air filter directly into the throttle body. Now, if you looked at the bottom side of that factory engine cover, there are some tuning chambers in there, and by having that straight shot, you're negating those tuning features, and that does give you that performance-sounding cold air intake sound. With both intakes fully assembled, I can do some comparative studies on the SuperFlow flow bench. I'm going to need to set up some of the parameters here, and I'm going to be running at a test pressure of 25 inches, zero leakage, and an intake scale of 9, which gives us about 700 CFM. All of that is somewhat irrelevant as we're going to be doing a side-by-side test, but if anybody wants to try to recreate the numbers, that's what you'll need to input on the bench to get the same numbers. So here's what I set up for the test using each of the air intake systems. Here we see the stock system on a small extension. That's a 10-inch extension at 3-inch diameter. We'll use that same exact pipe for both. But this way we can run everything through the factory system and see what the total air potential is, having the same amount of vacuum draw being a simulation of the motor, and compare how much airflow we get through the stock box versus what we get through the S&B. And now we're going to run the exact same test with the S&B setup, and we're going to use that same 10-inch long extension, 3-inch diameter, and set everything up to run in the exact same conditions. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I'm going to start off with the block-off plate on the S&B filter system installed, and this will give us the lower of the two, but again, one of the options I want to compare to stock. And of course, we have the last option, which is going to be with that block-off plate removed, and we're going to conduct the very same test. So here's the flow bench results. Basically, with the stock airbox and filter, we're seeing about 543 CFM, drawing 700 CFM through it. With the S&B cotton filter and the block-off plate closed, we're getting about 691 CFM for a total of 148 CFM improvement over stock. The S&B with the cotton filter with the block-off plate open nets us 728 CFM for a total of 185 CFM over stock. Now remember, I'm only flowing a range 9, which is a 700 CFM pull. If I were to actually increase some of those numbers, I think the gains would be even better. But comparatively speaking, this is simply to check and see what kind of improvements we could expect from a motor that's drawing about 300 horsepower. So that's where that 700 CFM mark came from. So it's time to get some dyno numbers, and I'm going to let you know a little bit about the equipment we're running. Obviously, this is our exhaust dyno test cell, and in this condition, we do everything from emission certification to horsepower validation, and creating consistent numbers is very important. So we do use a Dynojet Lynx 424 LC. The Lynx means it's driving all 4 tires, as you can see here. It's going to put all the load and the parasitics of using the big tires all the way around and take care of all of those drag and other things that come from driving a 4-wheel drive system. At the end, this does shrink our total numbers, but percentage-wise should still be representative. However, it'll give us more real-world numbers simulating a more real driving condition. That being said, we're going to normalize the temperature of the vehicle, make sure that everything inside the room is in the similar condition, and we'll run some repeatable tests. Typically, we run 2 or 3 tests. We average out the numbers, and we report the middle number as a median number to get us the most consistent results. So here we go. We're going to run a baseline and create the baseline number, and we'll run some repeat testing afterwards. So here are the final results of the dyno passes, and to start off with, I'll let you know what the color coding is. The red is our baseline, and the blue and green are the cold air induction with the block-off plate in the on position, which means closed. And if you look at the chart, you'll notice something that happens right before peak horsepower, and that's right around 6,000 RPM, and well before the shift point, some spark knock was introduced. And with the increased airflow and really no adaptive time as I changed out the air intake from stock to the cold air induction on the dyno, there was definitely some potential for that lean condition to come up as more air was introduced, and the mapping hasn't had time to adjust. So there might be some reason for that. But up until that point, if you notice, there's a good solid anywhere between 6 to 8 horsepower and 6 to 8 foot-pounds of torque that is gained throughout the power band. I'm assuming that a little bit more drive time with the cold air induction is going to allow the vehicle to adapt and either up fuel or decrease spark, whichever is necessary to ensure that the vehicle is, one, not harmed, and two, going to have the most power output. So there you have it. The cold air induction is still going to provide a good power increase. It definitely has an increased output in CFM. And last but not least, it sounds pretty cool. Take a listen.